We gotta get the folks an extra two,
Oh,
3 minutes.
yeah. Tonight might be tonight might be the best one yet. These tears, they feel different.
Okay. All right. We are live. We apologize for our slight delay. We hadn't had dinner today, so we just keeping it real. Welcome to Tuesday Motivation and Conversation. We're back for relationship conversations. I got Mr. Jamal Bazil. This
What's
is
up,
the
everybody?
finale. This is the finale
Ah,
of the relationship series. I got to get some more people on the platform. You know, folks a little Jay, at UJ, because you've been hogging all the time. So
yeah.
people like, we got to get some time in. But anyway, thank you to those of you who have been faithfully sharing in this series with us. We so very much appreciate it. It has really been um, a time that has, I mean, it's helped me. I don't know about you, Jamal, but it is
Oh,
really so,
definitely.
it has been self awareness happening, self evaluation happening, self inventory happening, and then the learning curves, right? We've learned from each other in various ways. And so, here again, thank you to those of you who have been rocking with us. So, here again, we are here tonight, and I think we got a good conversation. And as always, we want to invite you into the conversation. Make sure that you, first of all, before we get going, take a moment and share this on your social media platforms. Text it to somebody, grab the link, text it to somebody, and ask them to be a part of the conversation. And we're going to get going. Um, yeah, so we being practical tonight. We got our dinner in front of us because we haven't eaten. It's 9 p.m. Central Standard Time or a little past that, and it's 10 p.m. Eastern. And so we're making it do
Yes.
what it do. So
Yes, ma'am.
we're going to kick this off tonight. And I was talking to Jamal pre going live, and we were talking about a couple of the poems, one being reality and the other one being vision. And so we
Mhm.
were just talking about some practical pieces when it comes to those two entries, those two excerpts from Engineered Muse, and how those things apply. And so I'm going to take the opportunity to read the excerpt that I want to kind of go from, and then he's going to do vision because I think that is so important. And oh God, I can go on and on and on about vision.
That's
But
your
what I
word.
want to, yeah, that's it. I'm with vision. Hey Tiff, good to see you on tonight.
Yeah.
So I want to read just a little bit, and this is all I need because this right here I think will catapult our conversation tonight. But one of the things that we were talking about from a practical perspective is the reality of relationships in this day and time. And how we think about it, how we show up for relationships, how we handle these relationships, how we communicate in our relationships. What do we take for granted? How do we use relationships? And one
Mhm.
of the perspectives that we were talking about was the fact that relationship frustrations doesn't just come from, as we've talked about over the course of these last 2 months, romantic relationships, but
Right.
frustrations come from family relationships, sibling relationships, professional relationships, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Comes from grief, relationships that we lose suddenly and or slowly
Yes.
from the loss of a loved one. Those are frustrations because we have to figure out how we're going to manage with those persons no longer being with us tangibly. They're with us in spirit. But
Mhm.
how do you handle that? And as a result of that, then we do this spinoff by getting into relationships we don't need to get into because we're trying to soothe the heart, right? I think I done said a whole lot right there. But I'm going to read this excerpt and then let's unpack it. Let's talk about it. So this is just the first two paragraphs of reality. There are plenty of things that I would like to do, but cannot do because of societal barriers, or should I say societal norms. I'm adding words to the other author's
Mhm.
writing.
Mhm.
Self-imposed limits, tenets of my faith in Jesus Christ, and filtrations through the word identifying the desire as unwise. These desires may not necessarily be bad, but may be revealed as unprofitable for my purpose and God's will for my life. The great dichotomy, God's will and the free will he granted us. Check this out. This is interesting because your will can limit you, prevent you, and I'm going to add, and grant you complete freedom all at the same time. Consider the individuals that have convinced themselves that they could never perform a given task, or they can not do better than their present state. This is just who I am, take it or leave it. These and other confinements are fueled by individual will. Take any of the many memorable feats performed throughout history. What drove these individuals to do what others had not? Will. So oftentimes we make a choice because we have that right. God doesn't force us, and neither do people force us. We have a will. We have a free will to decide to do or not to do. And so oftentimes, we Christians, we spiritual folks, we blame it on God. I'm waiting on the Lord to tell me. I'm waiting on the Lord to show me. He's already told you. He's already showed you. This is a point of that. Everything that God's going to do, he's already done.
Yes.
Everything that God's going to create is already been created. He ain't starting over. He's done his work. It is there for us. The instructions are there. So he's never, um, at the point that we have to wait on him. He's waiting on us to catch up. He's waiting on us to mature up. He's waiting on us to fess up. And
Take a
sometimes
step.
he's waiting on us to clean up and stand up. So at the end of the day, we have a will. And so, are we being limited? Are we being prevented? Or we're being granted? Because all that can be happening at the same time. So chime in. Let's unpack this before we go to this piece about vision.
So, the interesting thing, we were kind of talking about this, like, I'm waiting on God. And that, you said it, you're not waiting on God. God did what God gonna do. And a lot of times God's waiting for us to take the step, right? God isn't gonna force you. That's why you have free will. That's why he gave us choice. And a lot of times people say they're waiting on God out of fear, right? They're waiting on God because, one, I'm praying for a husband, and God done sent you 55 guys, but it's not, they're not who you want, right?
Right.
So
right.
You're not, a lot of times we look at things through our eyes, through our desires. And we're not looking at it through spiritual eyes. Okay, you want a husband. Well, let's look at what that word means, right? Right. If you are a child of God, if you're a God's daughter, God ain't gonna send you somebody that, one, doesn't ascribe to his rule book, right? The Holy Bible. This is how you live, right? So that's borderline, that's basics, right? And so a lot of times we are really saying, God, I'm praying for you to send me what I want, not what's best for me, right? And I've heard guys say this, I'm praying to God to send me my wife. That'll never happen. God don't send my wives. I mean, the word literally said, he that findeth a wife, right? And so I'm going to repeat, so he that findeth a wife, not he that findeth someone who's cute, he that findeth a girlfriend, he that findeth, that woman has to already possess wifely qualities.
Qualities, absolutely. So she's already a wife. She's just waiting on the husband to show up so that she can carry out that's already been instilled in her. So every woman is not a wife. You got to determine if the wife qualities and materials are there.
And those qualities are not affected by gravity. So her assets are not stipulations or her wife ability. That's just not how that works. So a lot of times, man, we as guys, we're looking for something that looks good. We're looking for something that's appeasing to the eyes. And that's a small portion of it. That's the reality, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
find a wife. You have to first of all know what that means and what that looks like. How do you define a wife? Right? How do you, everybody says Proverbs 31 and all that stuff. That's great. You can say that, but the basics. Does this woman have a relationship, her own relationship with God? Not that she's coming to church because of me, or he's coming to church because they have to have their own separate relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. So let's go with the reality. Why is it that oftentimes none of that matters and women are chosen, be it wife material or not,
Mhm.
and months, years are spent, and then all of a sudden, 18 months down the road, you realize this is not a wife, but 18 months has been,
That's a
spent.
long time.
It is. I mean, a year, 6 months is a long time. So why is it that oftentimes men will choose knowing
That's great
that
tip.
this is not necessarily a wife,
Right.
but then there's this frustration. So let's talk about what's the frustration.
So I will say this. Initially, I think for a lot of guys, what you're describing is a lot of guys are looking for somebody that looks good on their arm, right? Somebody that amplifies how they look, so to speak. Somebody that I can bring and kind of show off, so to speak. I think we get caught up in that because there's always a competition of some sort for a lot of guys. Um, we we use the trophy as a status symbol, like my girl looks better than your girl, my girl dresses better than your girl. That, and so we run with that. But then when life start happening, especially when people start living together, and you realize like, yo, I don't know if I can handle this. She looked good, but I can't live with this person. And I think frustration plays a part in this as well when you got a good guy, striving, trying to live right, all this stuff, and he's constantly overlooked, or he gets no attention from
Mm-hmm.
the women like some of the other guys do. Then after a while, it's like, man, I'm going to become what they're showing me they accept, right? And
Mm,
I have a whole
mm.
section in this book
Okay.
about this.
Okay. 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 So let pause. Look.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now we're hungry, guys. So yeah, this is the last row. This is the last row. We getting it in best we can. So let's pause right there. Um, what we will allow as women, what we'll accept, you're willing to do, whether Christian or not.
Yes, ma'am.
And here's another thing, the whole thing about fornication and all that, I've always said that ain't in most men's Bibles. It's not in there because it doesn't matter. So, case in point, a practical perspective. Oftentimes, the single ministries at churches don't include men
Nope.
because at the end of the day, the men got somebody, saved, sanctified or not. They got somebody. We the ones trying to live, celibate and we trying to do it right and not
Mhm.
fornicate and all this. The men like, shoot, out look. I'm a man. I got to do what I got to do. I got it. So I need to know what's the thought process there. I just need to understand how is that easily overlooked or how is that easily,
So
uh-oh.
Tiffany's spitting
Yeah.
poetry over here. So, so for me, like we could talk about this all day. Let's talk about the singles ministry. Um,
Okay.
in my church,
I want to know.
I attempted on many occasions to run the single ministry, right? But it never came to fruition. But as I looked at the people that ran it before me, and as I went to other churches, and there were always women running the singles ministry,
Hmm.
right? More often than not, they are single guys in the church. But
Oh, we
and
know.
This is on a wider scale. Church caters to women more than it does to men because there's usually more women at the church, right? And so for a guy, I think
Wait a
if you
minute, wait a
look,
minute, hold on, wait a minute. Let's
mhm,
back up. Let's back up. No, ain't no
let's go.
So what does there being more women in the church than there are men have to do with what's in y'all's Bibles versus what's in ours?
No, it has nothing to do with what's in the Bible. What it has to do is with
Okay.
the sermons, the activities, everything is catered towards women. 100%.
Okay, give me
I
give me
would,
an example. Give me an example.
okay, so I'll give you an example. So when we had a singles ministry back in the day, one of the things they wanted to do was like the sip and paint thing. They're gonna do like a tea painting, whatever. And dudes are like, what? I ain't going to that, right? To me, there's a lot more activities for they had a tea party thing. They got it all nice and set up
Oh,
for
so
the
when it comes to activities, you're saying that the men don't come based on the type of activity is, and if it
100%.
if but now all singles ministry, that ain't the case.
No, so that's not all singles ministries. That's not all of them. I can only speak from what I know, but I've also seen a lot of times guys don't show up because again, guys don't feel like it's catered to them.
Okay.
They see more women at the front. They see more women running this ministry and running that, and they just feel like there's no room for me here.
Okay. Okay.
Here's
So
another. Go ahead.
but I think the first point that I made, or the first statement that I made, is more inclined to be the actual perspective, is because you really ain't got that many single men. They single, but they ain't single.
No, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
people
yeah,
living. I
yeah,
mean, people living how they're
yeah, yeah,
living.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Or they out here just what I like to call picking up rations where they can, right? Like I'm
Oh,
gonna
they
date this
rationing.
girl.
They
I can date this
rationing.
girl. I'm gonna date
Yeah,
this
yeah,
girl.
yeah,
I'm gonna date this girl.
yeah,
Just keep
yeah,
myself
yeah, yeah,
entertained.
yeah. Yeah, they rationing. They
Um.
may not bring her to church, but she out
Oh
there,
no. But
right?
on the flip side though, the ladies they'll bring them to church. They'll bring their dudes to church because if you're gonna be with me, you have to come to church. And that's like you can tell when a dude don't want to be there, but he's there because she's there. And he's like, look, she fine, and I want to make sure I keep this date. So I'm coming to church. You can see it. You can always see it. 100%.
So here again, we have wheels. We make decisions based on so many different parameters, right? So many different perspectives. But at the end of the day, you have a choice. And so, what do we use as our gauges to make our decisions, right? And what causes us these frustrations? Do we often cause our own frustrations because of the decisions we make or the things we overlook, whether it be man or woman?
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes we overlook to fill the voids, to
Yeah.
curb the loneliness, whatever the case may be, to have the companion, whatever it is, we make the decision. So whoever that is or whatever that is a product of our decision making process.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
100%. And so the thing about will, Miss Moody, is that, like you said, God gave us a free will. But with that will, God requires of us to submit our will to his will,
Absolutely.
right? And that's one of the hardest things on the planet to do. Because a lot of times I've dealt with it where it's like, God, man, like, are you asleep? Like I'm trying to I'm trying to live life. I'm trying to get married, have a family. Like, what are you doing? Right? God, I'm trying to be at this level in my career. I'm trying to.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens is we have these desires, we have hopes and dreams, um, and all that is great. And I'm going to reference Swoop here. Swoop just brought out an album, excuse me, called We Go On. we start grieving the lives that we thought we would have by now.
That's
And
true.
when that starts happening, when you don't see the life that you've worked so hard for, you've imagined, when you don't see it materializing, then we start, all right, God, I'm going to help God out. I'm going to help you out. So I'm going to go to that guy or I'm going to go to that girl and I'm going to bring them they go to church. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, they're nice. They're whatever. Your purpose and their purpose are completely opposites, but it don't matter. They saved. That's good enough. And so we start filling the gaps.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll, like I shared with you, right? So my recent revelation, just lost my mentor in August, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys like my best friend, loved him. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just a spiritual juggernaut, right? And months later, a couple of weeks ago, it just last week maybe, it hit me of all the conversations and people I was just talking to, like, and just taking from them.
Mm-hmm.
And in my effort to fill that void, I went to women. I started talking to a bunch of women, like their friends, whatever, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm talking. And I realized that I'm pulling from them, taking time from them. The more time you spend with somebody, the more attached they
Absolutely.
become. And if you're
Absolutely.
not careful, I was born and raised in the islands. The first thing we learn how to do is flirt, right? So in a
Mm-hmm.
conversation, it's so automatic for me sometimes I don't realize it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I text a friend
Mm-hmm.
of mine and I say, yo, do I flirt a lot? Because it got to the point where I realized, like, whoa, what are you saying? What are you doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All to fill this void. The bad part about that is, as a man, I believe wholeheartedly, right? Because I wrote it in here. My job is to protect the women in my
Mm-hmm.
life. That
Mm-hmm.
means I need to watch what I'm saying. I need to make sure there's boundaries so she's not saying nothing crazy to me and all that. But I miss that all because of grief.
Mm-hmm.
Then I look back when I lost my brother, the same kind of thing happened,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we're trying to fill these voids
Fill the
and
voids.
grief, those, as Swoop put it in the album, there's sudden grief, right? Like a loss of a
Right.
family
Right.
member, a father,
Absolutely.
or whatever. But I love how we put it in the album. There was in the intermission, there's compounded grief as well. Like if
Mm-hmm.
you if you grow up in just a bad community, bad relationships around you, that's just grief that eventually it just compounds. You have all your family, you have all your loved ones around you, but there's so much grief from whatever struggle, it's still grief. And we
Mm-hmm.
try to satiate the pain and the hurt by filling it with people, substances, sex, porn, you name it, right?
Right.
But you're still empty because those things don't last a long time.
Right. The temple. So, it's one of those things, as we were saying, that you really have to be careful of because it's one of those things where you can get out of alignment with it really easy, very subtly.
Mhm.
And this is how the enemy works and gets us all off track. We get into, relationships we have no business being into, then our emotions are all tied to it, then our spiritual radar gets off and everything is out of whack, right? So
Mhm.
we stop managing ourselves, leading ourselves, and then you got all of these things that you've got to walk back and realign.
I just got something.
Okay, what you get?
So when you said the enemy gets us off track, I wrote a poem, Drifting.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing about drifting is it requires no effort at all.
Right.
But at the same time, it requires a whole lot of effort. So if you don't do anything, you drift.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing too much, you drift as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I like to use the example of like work. People that are married, yeah, I'm working all this overtime, providing for my family, but you have no relationship with your children because you're never at home, and your wife feels ignored because when you get home, you go straight to bed, you're tired, you're still
There's a drifting.
drifting,
There's a drifting happening.
right? And so
Yes.
um in our lives, in our relationships, if we're not careful, if you're not reading, if you're not around like-minded people, community is absolutely important. If you don't recognize your capacity for love, your capacity for
Mm-hmm.
service, your capacity for communication, how you communicate, you will find yourself so far, and you don't have to be doing anything egregious,
Right.
but you'll find yourself in a stale marriage, or you'll find yourself dating somebody who has no vision. And you're like, how am I here?
How
Or
does
some,
that work?
it happens so just the one God put this in all of us. We all need relationship. We need people. We need community. We want acceptance. We want
Right.
to be recognized and noticed. And sometimes we will inject our own selves with Novocaine and put our minds to sleep
Wow. 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 Wow.
just to feel, just to be proximate to somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you're not careful, you won't recognize it till it's too late, or you may never recognize it. So with that, right, you're a
Mm-hmm.
zombie walking around this world with all this purpose, and God is sitting there like, that's it. You were the only one that
Mm-hmm.
was going to do this for the world, but you put yourself to sleep.
And you mentioned community, and I think it's important that in the communities that we decide to be a part of, we want to make sure that these are communities that are genuine communities. These are communities that have authenticity. These are communities that are honest, even when there are challenges, that you're honest and you have that level of accountability. Because if not, you'll sugarcoat it, you'll glaze over it. And my thing is, you're not a friend to me if you can't be honest with me. If
Yeah.
you can't approach me and tell me, hey, that wasn't cool, or you drifting, or that wasn't right. You should have done that young lady like that, or you shouldn't have done that guy like that. Here again, we have to be, Tiffany said, we have to be intentional about how we show up, about how we curate relationships, about how we manage them, right? But also the other thing about, because community to me breeds consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Because when there's authenticity, when the realities are there, when there's accountability and responsibility, then people are going to say the things that need to be said, and they're going to bring us back into alignment. And so even if we don't notice it, then that means somebody's going to say something, somebody's going to, shake us, so to speak, and not necessarily literally, but from an intelligence perspective, from a relationship perspective, and shake us and say, hey, that ain't cool.
Yeah.
And do you need to talk? Do we need to talk? But that ain't, I just need to share with you that was not right. But so it's really important that we're in the appropriate environments that breeds that level of accountability and responsibility. So we don't get so far off the track that we can't, find our way back.
So
Or it takes
yes,
us so long to get back there that, we lose touch with the process.
one of the things, so I started for the first time ever doing the read the Bible for a year, right?
Hmm.
And I'm doing it chronologically. So today is my first day. So Genesis 1, 2, and 3. And I still have 3 left to read. So I'll be reading that after this. But in Genesis 2, it talks about God creating all the animals,
Hmm.
Adam being there. Um, and it says, basically, God said it's not good for man to be alone. So there's
Hmm.
that statement, right?
Hmm.
But then after that, Adam still had to go and name all the animals.
Hmm.
So God recognized it ain't good for him to be alone, but Adam still had work to do. So he names the animals, and there was no suitable companion for Adam amongst all the animals and all the stuff he named. So then
Hmm.
God put him to sleep, rib, woman, all that stuff. So then I started asking myself, in my life, with all the people around me, are there suitable mates in the sense of suitable relationships?
Hmm.
that are going to grow me, that are going to fill me. Does that make sense? Like spiritually, emotionally, mentally.
Of
And
course, yes.
I started thinking, I'm like, some of these people aren't, they're not bringing any substance.
But here's the thing. Here's the key to that. You already know that.
Yeah, I
You
do.
know it.
So,
But
so
the
now,
frustrations you will entertain because
yes,
of the frustrations. This is the whole full circle of this series. The relationship frustrations and the things we get into and the things we allow ourselves to tolerate, right? Tolerate because of the frustrations. And we know, you know, when something doesn't look right.
yeah,
So, as we were talking about the early on, the excerpt from the reality piece,
mhm.
do you have enough will to walk away when you know it ain't right?
Hmm.
Do you have enough will to leave, rather than stay when what does it take? You have to establish, what that is, and you have to allow that. You have to use your common sense and then make sure your sixth sense is cultivated and curated to be able to work on your behalf when the common senses don't work.
Listen, the Holy Spirit can't talk to you if you don't give him something to feed off of. You got to read the word. So, oh my gosh, there's something you said and it triggered a thought and then I lost it. The will.
Okay.
So, and I've done this in the past and I've heard people do it more recently now. I stopped doing this a long time ago. God, give me the strength to stay away and resist this or that, or not do this, or be better at that, right? And God is like, read my word. I will always give you a way out of temptation.
Mm-hmm.
You already have everything you need to do what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that will part, especially when you're talking about resisting, we praying for what God already gave us. We just have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We have to set up boundaries for ourselves to do what we know we should do. But
It's all
it's
about killing
easy,
that flesh.
but it's easy to say, well, God is still working on me and I'm praying about. No, God is like, I ain't got nothing to do with this. You just have to remove
That's
it.
the Christian's cop out.
100%.
That's the Christian's cop out. And so we use prayer, and all these other things.
Ooh, Tiff.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So struggle with leaving, but it caused more hurt. So now I try to let go when required. Because if you don't get out when you need to get it, it's just like in a fire. Or or you trying to help somebody that's drowning. If they
Yeah,
cannot swim, they're gonna if you have to have the technique to the point that you know how to manage that because they'll cause you to drown.
yes, no.
And so we have to be so very careful, or we have to come out and allow the lifeguard to do it. Let God do it. And yeah, that's
Mhm.
drastic, but at the end of the day, you gotta have enough will to walk away. And then maybe at a later time you can address a conversation. But at that point, you've now detached.
Right.
But when you're trying to leave and you attach, you
That's
and you don't have the will to do so, yeah.
so that's the thing, right? The time, time,
Yep.
time, time, time. The
Absolutely.
longer you stay where you should not be, you will become what you should not be. You will become
Absolutely.
attached. You will
Mm-hmm.
invest more. And then it
Mm-hmm.
becomes harder and harder to leave. And some people never leave. And some, when they do leave, they're so damaged. And then they're talking about God send me a husband. And God is like, I'm not going to send my son to you as broken and toxic as you are. You need to heal. So a lot of us are waiting because God is waiting for us to recognize I need to heal, turn back to God, and have God heal me instead of trying to rush into something else. God ain't gonna
And
set
some
a brother up like that.
and sometimes, oh, how can I say this? Oh my God, how can I say
Just say
this?
it. Do it.
So when we talk about the healing for women, I think we get over hurts a lot quicker than men. Men, it's like it takes a scratch a whole year to heal. But if there's a deep cut, it's like there's this thrust to try to let me just keep going. I'm gonna bleed, but let me just keep going. But if it's a scratch, it's like it takes a year.
Mm.
And what I'm saying is it's just it's so long. And there was a person that at some point in time, and this was a male, it took longer to really realize that the person that was now in their life was a person that brought value to their life, a person that was that complimented them, all the things that they desired, but they spent more time trying to not be hurt or getting over the past hurt that they almost allowed that person to slip away because after a
Mm.
while it's like, okay, what else do you need?
Mm.
So we have this imbalance sometimes in how we heal and how we handle the hurt, and as opposed to trying to really address the real issue, because sometimes we don't want to let go, or the healing can't happen because you just go and you just shut the heart down, when you got to heal the heart, not just shut it down, but you got to heal it. Because if you never heal it, then it doesn't get to a place where it can love again.
At
It
all.
can open up again, So there's that drastic side, and then there's sometimes here again, we heal real quick and we move on. It's like we put some ointment on it and we heal and we move on. Um,
Mm.
and
I
some
think
don't, so it just depends. But I think that's something that we have to be self-aware about as well.
so. I will say with that statement, it's because
Yeah, Tiff, you right
Tiff,
on that
it's
one.
funny. Men,
It take them a minute.
men don't face hurt honestly and immediately.
Mm-hmm.
We pretend like we all right,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, she could leave. I don't care. Bro. And then what we do is that other woman that comes,
Mm-hmm.
she gets beat up, beat down, neglected, all that stuff. We don't honestly face what we feel.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it
Absolutely.
is because we haven't been taught that,
Mm-hmm.
and we believe this lie like, oh, men aren't emotional, women are emotional. That's true. Women are emotional, but we are just as emotional.
Just as emotional.
We just express it differently, right?
Just as emotional.
So, okay, you may not boohoo and cry, but guess what? Anytime you do this, when you're talking to your girl and you shut down, that is
Mm-hmm.
you crying.
Yep. You stop eating.
You
You're
stop
not
eating. You
sleeping.
stop. Hey man, you want to come to the game? Nah, man, I'm good. I don't even got time for that. What?
Yep.
You're not working out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You start putting on all this weight. You, at work, you're not as prolific, as energized, as come on. Like
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff is the ways we express emotion. It's just different. But we keep when you lie to yourself enough and say you're okay,
Absolutely. Be in denial.
you normalize toxicity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's a societal norm for
Yep.
men. And that's the thing that we have to, and that's why it's so important in this time in this season, especially with these dating streets being all jacked up. I mean, I don't care what age you are, they jacked up. So we got to learn how to communicate, and you can't want the woman to tell you everything about her and who she is and how she, functions, and you
Yeah.
not share,
At all. Yeah,
right?
that's crazy.
So, and here again, that past, if you don't remember nothing else from this series beside relationship frustrations, remember capacity.
Yeah.
Because that's something you have to assess. And you have to assess it ongoing, because people peak out at certain levels. And it's
Mhm.
like, I can't go past that because I haven't been exposed past that. I haven't, communicated past that. I hadn't been developed past that, right? I hadn't opened up past this mark. So if they hadn't gone past this mark, you don't have a plateau. They're gonna, it's gonna plateau, it's gonna peak, and then you got to deal with this or this on whatever side it's on. And if there's not a
Or this.
willingness, yeah, or and if there's not a willingness to address
Yeah.
those perspectives, you're gonna have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we learn how to communicate and talk. And if you're gonna be in a relationship, you got to open up. And I'm not saying you open up the first date, but that has to be a part of it, especially if it's a person of sincere interest. But you take your time and assess that before you begin to open up on certain levels. But at the end of the day, that's a part of the process.
You're right,
Otherwise, you're going
Tiff.
to be in a relationship with frustrations.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I was accused of this recently. I'm not gonna give you the exact timetable. But I was accused of this recently. You don't share anything, you don't communicate well. So I thought about it. And I said, I would question that. I would argue that. I was like, I think you don't understand how I communicate. And I think you're expecting me to communicate the way you communicate. But it goes back to what we said initially, right? There needs to be a translator. We have to translate what the other person is saying and people are saying, right? And that takes time, that takes effort, and that takes a willingness on both ends. A lot of times in these relationships, like if you're with somebody dating or married and you've been around this person as friends or whatever, you should be able to tell when this person is off. Like you're
Oh,
not
for
acting
sure.
like yourself. Like, you're not, if I'm not, if you're having a conversation with me and I'm not throwing in a joke or two somewhere, something is wrong. Like if I'm not being silly, okay, Jay, what's going on? Right. So you gotta recognize those things. And a lot of times I will say this for the women. Women recognize when a guy is off and they allow him to just not say anything.
Or we try to force the issue.
Or yeah,
I know something wrong. I know something wrong. I
right.
know something wrong. And you got to, it's something wrong. And here's the deal. If that person is not at a place where they can open up and communicate on any level, you have to be able to leave it alone.
Yes. Yes.
That's when your sixth sense has to come into play. And you got to know, okay, I need to just pay attention and I got to know when I need to pray or when I need to change the subject and I need to talk about something else. And if you know how to communicate, then you'll know how to pivot.
Yes. Yes.
That's when you pivot and you determine where you can get in, because at that point, that means you got to get in wherever you can, not by force, but you got to get in a way that is suitable for that individual to communicate with you.
Yes.
And
And that's
oftentimes, when you divert correctly, they'll begin to talk about it without you asking the questions because it's there.
yeah.
The
Create the
frustration is
atmosphere.
there, the hurt is there. But when you create an atmosphere for them to open up and start, they'll just start talking about it. Then you got to not step in there. You just got to let it flow. When the faucet comes on, let the water run. When it starts
100%.
to drip, then you ease in. So we gotta be mindful of those kinds of things and know how to engage and interact and
Yeah.
allow people, and that can be on either side, because you can have a woman who's closed and guarded, right? And she's only going to tell you so much. She's only going to share so much. And so because you have all different types of personality types, the same thing applies. You got to know how to be subtle with her, soft with her, and let's do something else that's going to, and eventually, if that's something that's really pressing and they're about to bubble over with it, they're eventually going to open up.
Yeah. Miss Moody, I'm about to jump. I'm about to jump real quick
Okay.
because something jumped. So, man, these dating streets in 2024 is different, right? So
Different.
and this started before this is one of my pet peeves. Like, do not one word text me. Do not like that, because it shuts me off. Like, so I am for the most part, I'm a full sentence with punctuation texter, right?
Yeah.
And I personally hate texting. I prefer phone calls. because then I can hear the change in tones, the octaves, I can hear more, I can interpret more, right? But I mean, I've had, and this isn't even this is just friends. By the way, if you're listening and you are my friend, I hope you are taking notes on this. Like, don't give me the how, hey, good morning, how you doing? How's your day? Anything interesting going on today? No, not really. Okay, I'll let you have that. And then I text and you just, yeah, no. After a while, I'm just gonna stop texting you,
Yeah.
right? And it's like,
Then the question comes, well, what happened? We were talking, were we?
and that's the thing, right? I always get like, oh, you ain't talked to me in a minute. I know, because you don't know how to have a conversation. Like
Well, yeah, they do. Wait. They do know how to have a conversation. They're having a conversation on their level.
you know what? You're right. It's touche.
They're having a conversation on their
Touche.
level. So it's not that they're not having a conversation. They're having one. They're just having one on their level. So you got to know, is this something I continue to deal with? I mean,
Oh, and
you
this,
know,
listen,
can you
I'm not
stand in your
even
truth on that?
I'm not even talking about like dating somebody, right? I'm just talking about friend. I'm gonna tell you right, like I'm talking friendship, right?
Wow.
Like if I call you, you don't answer, but then you text me while the phone is still ringing, like what's up? And you not at church, you not drive. First of all, you can't be driving because you're texting me. You shouldn't be driving because you're texting me. Like that right there sends me up the. It's like, all right, cool. I'm not even gonna respond to that. You know, like the. I think people love texting because it is another filter, another mask of where they truly are. Like if I could, like I want to see your face because there's so
Well,
much that comes from that.
here again, you know, this is an old school kind of perspective you're expressing.
There we go. I was born in the
I'm
wrong
just
era, y'all.
Oh, no. I'm just well, come on now. There's a whole generation in between. Um, but I'm just saying, you just got to think about the time, and so that's why you have to use your sixth sense, tap into and pay attention to, and really gather the data relative to the persons who have the same types of communication styles,
Yes.
the same level of intelligence when it comes to the things that flow with who you are.
Miss Moody,
And so, okay.
what you're telling me, Tiffany is hilarious because she literally answered her phone during the class today. Because I was struggling with this Instagram post. I was getting on my nerves. But what I'm hearing you tell me then is that all of my friends should be 55 and above.
No, that's not what I'm saying, because there
I
are
mean, that's
some.
just,
I'm not saying they have to all be 55 and above. What I am saying is that you have to allow that sixth sense to kick in and determine whether or not this is your communication style type of person.
no, it's not. So I'm just cleaning the list. So I'll give you my mother is obviously an older woman. I mean, she looks great for her age. I don't know. She eats like onions and garlic, like whole. It's crazy,
Oh my goodness.
right? And this is something that I always find interesting. Like when I'm on the phone with my mom and we're talking about anything, like even if I was there with my mother, she's gonna recant the whole story with the same energy as she does every time, right? And one thing I gotta give to her is she is a clear communicator,
Mhm.
right? And this is something I've had to work on where I assume that okay, people are gonna put together in their mind what I put together in my mind, and I wrestled with that for a lot of years. And I think I'm still growing through it and coming out of it. But it has been a struggle for me just communicating with people because these words that aren't words, people making up words, they're not fully expressing. If I ask you a question and you send me an emoji, like, you know,
So case in point. So there's this personal development, well, the den.
mhm,
So this is one of the things that was said in the just most recent training. Not only do you have to communicate what you said, but you have to also clearly communicate with clarity what you didn't say.
yeah,
So I said, I'm good, but I didn't say that means for you to come over here.
yeah,
That I want company. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Or whatever. And so I think sometimes you almost have to kind of force, in a sense, when you are communicating with people, and to the point you mentioned, you may ask a question and then it comes back, not really, I'm okay, not really, I'm not really, I'm sick, not really what.
right,
Now me, that's how I'm going to respond back, because I need to understand what you're talking about.
absolutely.
I'm not assuming anything. I don't read minds. I don't have time to read minds. I got enough going on up there in my own. I don't have time to try to read yours. That's too much work.
So
So I'm gonna need you to give me a little bit more back than that. And then I'm gonna have a conversation.
yes, so and that's the
But
thing.
not on text. So when you had an opportunity face to face, then that's my opportunity to have a conversation.
So I hear you, Tiff, but I'm gonna make you talk on the phone because I'm gonna call you. Um, you know, the interesting thing about human beings, right? And some people try to deny it. We all desire relationship in some shape, form, or capacity. We all
Sure.
desire relationship. The problem with human beings nowadays, I would say, we don't understand what that requires. It requires us relating.
Mm-hmm.
Relating takes work. It takes effort. It takes listening.
It
It takes
does. Actively.
speaking, right? It takes sitting still. It takes analysis, assessing. Okay, what did I just say? How did it come across? How did he or she receive it? And then adjusting,
Mm-hmm.
like Tiffany put it in there. If a
Mm-hmm.
relationship is important enough to you,
Yes. You'll
you
make
are
the
going to
adjustments.
make the necessary adjustments to
Adjustments.
maintain a healthy relationship.
And then sometimes we have to help people because they communicate the way they've been allowed to communicate in their environments.
Yes.
And so when they come into an environment where there's a person who's communicating on a different level, and they're communicating clearly, openly, in full sentences. I remember when my children first got phones and they were texting. I said, do not send me this Ebonics texting. I ain't doing it. I'm not trying to figure it out. I'm not trying to decode what you're saying. I need you to use your words. And when you're texting me, now how you text your friends, that's between y'all. But when you're texting your mama, I need to understand what you're saying. Because if I'm in a situation and I don't have time to do all of that decoding, you may be sitting on a corner waiting on a ride or in the rain getting wet, a lot of different stuff. So I need you to talk to me. So when you text me, and to this day, they
Yeah.
text me in full sentences
Yeah.
because I had to let them understand that that could be an issue if you have an emergency. And if you're not telling me clearly what I need to know, and I don't have time to go through and read it. I need to know exactly what the situation is, what the plight of the circumstance is, good, bad, and indifferent. So,
Miss Moody, we walk around here living our lives in text messages and emojis, but
mhm,
never truly expressing how we really
yep,
feel, what we really need, what we
because we
really
stopped talking,
desire. We stopped communicating.
stop talking, stop communicating with each other.
We walking around living text message lives and then
Hmm.
wondering why we feel unfulfilled in our relationships,
Hmm.
but we
That's
stay
it.
there because we're like, at least I got a relationship, but are you happy though? Are
Is
you
it though?
alive though?
Is it one
Is
though?
it really a
Because we
relationship
ain't
though?
talking though. So is it though?
You know, it's
There's no
it's
communication, there's no
devastating.
talking. Which, here again, one of the things that I like about like road trips, when I take road trips, and
Mhm.
especially if, I take road trips with somebody, that's an opportunity to actually have conversation,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Um, Or even a lot of times flying,
Oh
because
yeah.
it's like for some people it eases the nerves, that kind of thing. But, oftentimes these devices have so taken over our lives which is thusly why pen to paper is so important.
Coming to Hampton Roads, y'all. May 4th.
Pen to paper is so important because that's why we don't know what we want. We don't understand what we want because we don't get this stuff out. We don't get it on paper. We don't assess it. We don't evaluate it. We don't see our gaps. We don't, just when you're journaling about yourself and what you aspire for, what you want to do, how you want to do it, even when it comes to managing your life, if you don't write down the bills you have, the responsibilities you have, do you not know that you can get caught up, tangled up because so much is going on up here? You know what I mean? And so if you forget to put it in the device, then guess what? But when you write it down, your brain, which is the first device,
Sense it. Yeah.
it automatically takes a photo of it and
Yeah.
it's ingrained there. And so that's thusly why they don't teach children to write anymore. They don't teach cursive anymore. They don't teach them to type anymore. It's the thumbs and the forefingers. That's all you're working with. So these are soft skills that matter
Yeah.
because if something happens with the grid, therefore, but the grace of God, I tell you, go
We
the
out
whole
of
world.
luck. We out of
You know what I
luck.
mean?
If the grid goes down, we are
People
out
don't
of
write
luck.
letters anymore. It's just you think about the time and the connection and the commitment that goes with the writing, communicating.
So this is why I absolutely love writing. And I started the second book, y'all. I'm working on the second book now.
Yeah.
And there's so much to write about. And I think this second book will be a lot more internal, just like me looking at life from what I've experienced. But anyways, it's so important that we pay attention to relationships, how we manage them, how we
Mm-hmm.
handle them. Um, you show me your relationships, I'll show you your life, right? There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people that I talk to and they're like, man, I'm struggling with this. I'm trying to meet this goal. I haven't met this goal. And I listen to them and I know they're friends. And I'm like, well, I know why.
Mm.
Right. I know why. And by the way, sometimes, shoot, don't just blame it on the friends. It's your family. Some of us need to get away from some of the members in our family,
That's so
right?
true. That's so
Because
true.
there's a constant toxicity about your family. And it's like you trying to take care of them and keep the peace and all this stuff. And God is like, you trying to be Jesus. That's not your
Mm-hmm.
job. I
Right.
need you to go
Absolutely.
fulfill your purpose. And we got sisters and arguing with our moms and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and we
The
miss it.
imbalance of it all. That's true. That's
We
true.
miss it. Like we really have to manage our relationships. And that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, but you have to
Right.
constantly be assessing. Like, and, oh, by the way, sorry, included in managing your relationship, that means your relationship with yourself as well,
Absolutely. That's the
right?
first one because we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anybody else.
100%.
And so what we say, a thought life is real.
Yes.
And however you channel your thoughts and however your thoughts flow is a lot of times how your life flows because you're speaking to yourself either positively or negatively.
Yes.
And if you're being a negative Nancy or, a doubting Thomas or whatever the case may be in your thoughts, then that's kind of how you act with your relationships. And so it's a direct connection and correlation to how we manage one another. And so we got
Yes.
to make sure that this is together, our heart, our sixth sense, and we got to use those things and we got to use them on a consistent basis. And really be subjective about our relationships.
So, Miss Moody, on that point, when you have a healthy relationship with yourself, it dictates who you allow to come around you, right?
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and Tiff, that's absolutely right. When your surrounding starts to change to
Hmm.
healthier people, people that can grow you, challenge you, people that are smarter than you, people that are
Absolutely.
where you aspire to go, your life will change. Your
Absolutely.
entire life will change.
You
Um,
personally begin to develop. And so
100%.
that's the thing we have to keep in mind. That's why I say all the time to clients, I say this to persons in my circle. You cannot ever assume, to my coaching and mentoring group,
Mm,
you cannot assume that everybody has been exposed to what you've been exposed to. You
that's true.
cannot assume that everybody's been developed to the extent that you've been developed. You cannot assume that what has been made available to you has been made available to the next person. And so that's why it's incumbent upon us to be mindful of the relationships and how we're managing those things. Before we conclude tonight, I want to have you to read um, the excerpt Vision, and we're going to end on that note. And we'll leave that with our viewers to think about. And maybe you can, share your comments online in the chat, or if you want to send a message or whatever the case may be, definitely let us know how you've enjoyed this series. We may bring it back at some point in time during the year. I'm thinking about inserting it in another way over the course of the year. So we'll see how that goes. But we have enjoyed coming to you every Tuesday for
Yes.
motivation and conversation and discussing these relationship frustrations, having these real, we've just been talking. It's just conversation, you know. And so tonight we've been eating and conversating. But nevertheless, it has been an awesome opportunity to I've grown.
Likewise.
I've learned some things have come to mind for me to think about. And so definitely want to leave you with this thing about vision. And then once Jamal has shared vision, then I have a couple of things I want to share with you, and then we will be concluding for tonight.
So, Miss Moody, I want to say thank you for inviting me onto your
Absolutely.
podcast. Definitely appreciate it. Um, you took a risk because sometimes the stuff that come out of my mouth. And for all of you out there, really quickly, I wanted to say, if you have gotten the book Engineered Muse and you've been reading, one of the things that I'm about to do is I want to do kind of almost like a virtual book club, have you guys come online. I got to set up my YouTube channel and all that stuff. And let's just talk about what you've gotten from the book, comments on the book, thoughts on the book, questions on the book, so we can keep this conversation going. That's the whole intent of this book, is to keep the conversations about relationships going, and we can grow each other and learn from each other as we go through. All right, so I'm reading Vision, correct?
Yes.
Me. Okay. All right. Vision. A people without a vision will perish. God gifts us with vision. It is his way of fueling us towards our full potential, the way to fully engage and employ us in the purpose he has willed for our life. But even in this, we must be wary that this vision, whether it be for a particular project, place in life, or achievement, does not become so appetizing that we try to step ahead of God on the journey, or that we fixate on it. Often, we try to make things happen. We try to change people's minds and hearts. We can get frustrated because others can't see the vision. Every step forward seems to be accompanied by 10 steps backwards, and it feels as though there is no progress, and 5 years have gone by. And the whole time, God is waiting for you to surrender, to let him lead while you relish the journey. The journey is where you are tempered and molded, where God speaks and where wisdom is gained.
Hmm.
We try to get to that ideal place in the vision as fast as we can. We push and struggle forward because God showed it to us, so it is ours for the taking. Careful. If the vision is given by God, why then would the realization of it not be at God's pace? We beat at the wind, running the wrong race, exhausting ourselves, and this blurs the vision, and eventually we realize that we are lost, using our own marred and uncalibrated compass. With God, it is never really about where he showed you that you'll be. It's about who you will become by the time you get there and the problem you are meant to solve. The vision is merely a glimpse. There is always so much more in store if you are willing to trust and obey. No, we can't see the full picture. but we do know that God works all things out for our good. Additionally, like our trials, our vision is not for us. It is for ministering to others. So the place of victory, success, or acquisition that God shows you is tied to greater blessing outside of self, connected to hearts and minds beyond what we can understand in our moment of revelation. With every vision, every promise, there is continued revelation about God and revelation about self through the journey and to completion.
Thank you, sir. So once the vision has gotten a manifestation, it's not over. It's at that time that you must learn how to manage the vision because it is for an appointed time. And so revelation continues to come, and you have to be able to manage that process. So wanted to leave that with you. In addition to that, there's the coaching and mentoring group called the Vision Room. So for those of you who may be interested in that opportunity for ongoing coaching and mentoring, just about vision. And that's to help you curate and process the things that you already have in place or the information that you've already received, helping you to manage that as you continue to move forward. We have revelation, we have manifestation, but we have to work the stuff in the middle. That's the most important part. So I'm going to put the link in the chat. If you desire to be a part of that, that room closes um, on this Friday. So you'll want to get in now. It will not open um, until toward the end of the year as we are bringing some things into that space to help people go to the next level with their vision. So I would definitely encourage you if that's you. It's definitely going to provide you more benefit for your investment. Just wanted to let you know that. And then of course we have the pen to paper tour that's happening. We'll be starting in Atlanta, Georgia, then to Hampton Roads and to other cities across the country, such as Las Vegas, Houston, Texas, Chicago, Illinois, San Bernardino, California, and the list goes on. So we look forward to seeing you in a city somewhere in the United States over the course of 2024, or we'd love to have you at Pen to Paper Conference, November 2024 in Dallas, Texas. That's November 1st and 2nd. That information is on the website at bridgetmoody.com/events. Registration's open right now. What I'm going to tell you is that you do not want to wait or hesitate. Pen to paper is an experience. It's hard to describe it to you. You just have to be in the place, but it's certain that it will sell out. Most of VIP's already gone. So if you have an interest, the link is live for booking your lodging, all of that. So you want to go ahead and tap in even now or tap into one of the workshops somewhere in a city near you. I appreciate you, Jamal, taking the time to be a part of Motivation and Conversation. You've become part of the family here. And so we thank you so much for sharing with us, sharing your gift, and consistently being a part of this platform over the last 8 weeks. And it has been a phenomenal, phenomenal time. And I'm looking forward to all that's going to happen in the days ahead when it
Thanks for
comes
having
to
me.
absolutely the engineer muse, the poetic concierge. I'm telling you, there's a whole lot more to come. Y'all ain't seen nothing yet.
Yes.
So it's just gotten started, and I'm a purpose pusher. So he's getting pushed. Trust me. He's getting pushed.
Oh,
So look, I'm telling you, it's some stuff on the horizon, so you don't want to miss it. I'm
yeah.
telling you, if you are anywhere in the vicinity of Dallas, Texas in November, you want to make sure that your face is in the place. So make sure you get
Yes.
connected, get your registration in, grab your seat, and get locked in. And we're looking forward to seeing every one of you go to the next level. Listen, I'll be back. Jamal won't be here, but I will.
Nope.
So y'all come back.
Yes. Yes.
Because I'll be talking about something totally different next week. We'll have some more guests that'll be joining us over the course of the next few weeks. There are a lot of clients who have been launching projects, and I'm so thankful for all of the gifts that have been releasing what God has given them, the creativity. It's a whole lot more to come. I'm telling y'all, I'm excited. And so definitely meet us back here, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for Tuesday, Motivation and Conversation. We'll see y'all next time.